Welcome into the Stack Shack podcast. My name is Nathaniel, and we are very excited. We got two great pieces of content to talk about today. Let's kick it off. Book of Boba came in with a banger, episode 6. I just have to
Such a
say
banger.
before we get started, I called it. Yes, you can give me a round of applause. Cad
I'll
Bane
Venmo you later,
decided to
don't
show
worry.
up. Yep, thank you very much. This is why you watch the podcast, for predictions like that. All right, Gabe, what did you think of the episode?
Oh my gosh. There was so much happening.
Yeah, so many moments.
I we said it before. When Dave Filoni comes in at the end,
Yeah,
when
when
he
you
he,
see
he starts
written
tying
by
it up.
Filoni, oh boy.
He's the GOAT. That's
He is.
that's all I can
He
say.
really
Just I think there are still some problems with the episode that we touched on from the last episode.
Yeah.
But as someone who just loves Star Wars, I was just this was great. Every part, I was like, oh,
It's a
you're
great
referencing
Star
that.
Wars piece of
Oh, you're
content.
bringing that in.
Mm-hmm.
Grogu's just adorable.
Yeah. It's just good. Good stuff.
So I'm very excited for what happens.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's more I'm excited for what's coming down the road in Star Wars, rather than what's well now that Cad Bane's here. Now I'm excited for Book of Boba Fett. But like up until that point, I was kind of like, oh, this is cool. This is cool. Can't wait for Ahsoka season 2. Can't wait for Mandalorian season 3.
Yeah.
And then Cad Bane comes in. I'm like, now I'm hyped for the rest
Now
of Book
I'm
of Boba
down
Fett.
for this.
I'm so ready.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I think I can echo most of your opinions. It was a great episode. It was a great piece of Star Wars content. There's so many nods. I mean, from the dialogue between Ahsoka and Luke, where she's like, "You're like your father," which is just ridiculous. After he's like making the same line that Anakin's last lines to Ahsoka were before like going off, and chills, man, chills. And
So
then
good.
you got Grogu on Luke's back when he's running, and I was like, I'm literally sitting there, and I think my family was a little, I don't know, like, what the heck are you doing, Nathaniel? Because I kept cheering for different things to happen, you know what I mean? And I was like, do a flip, and then he flips. I'm like, yes, it's just like these little moments that are such beautiful nods to the old content of, you're looking at Baby Yoda, Grogu, in the backpack instead of Yoda in the backpack, and Luke's training him rather than Yoda training Luke. Some great lines, like I just mentioned. The dialogue between Luke and Ahsoka, I think, was interesting. And then we've got some stuff with Mando bringing, the gift and that whole situation, which I think we'll get into in a moment. And then you bring in Cad Bane. Oh my goodness. The moment I saw that silhouette out in the desert with the hat, I knew it was Cad Bane, and I was pumped. I'm so glad we got the same voice actor. So it's interesting.
Yes.
I was reading up on it a little bit, because it sounded like the same voice actor to me. And it is the same voice actor, but he's not actually playing the character. They're using a stunt double to actually play the character. Which is kind of interesting, to have like a stunt double is going to be saying the lines, but then we're dubbing in, essentially, the voice actor's voice, which to me it looked fine. Like, there's no like desync. It's not like a bad dub. It looks right. It looks correct. It's the same language they're speaking, so that works out a lot better than sometimes we've seen where you have a different language. Old Japanese dubs can have something to say about that.
Sick. Yeah. Yep. I will refrain from that joke.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm so happy Cad Bane showed up, and like we talked last week, he is working for the Pikes, right? That's what we figured had to be happening.
It's the only way.
I love that he is such an intimidating character. I will say, some people, like, for example, my mother, who was watching with us, she's never seen Clone Wars. or Bad
Not
Batch.
the same impact
So
at all.
she's never seen Cad Bane before, so it doesn't quite have the impact. Like, I see the silhouette and I go, "Oh crap! Look who's showing up." She doesn't necessarily have that emotion, but I think they introduced him in a really good way. He's just a cool character. Even if you haven't seen Clone Wars, like, yes, you're not going to be as intimidated by him, but the fact that he kills the one, like, deputy, the marshal, we'll see if he's dead. I don't think he is. It didn't look like he was actually.
No,
He kind of
but
just got
he's
winged.
definitely got beaten. Like,
Yes. Cad Bane
absolutely
outdrew both of them. Which, that alone, you're like, oh yeah, this guy's sick.
You've already said that Cad Bane is just this intimidating of a character. Like, he is. They set him up well within the context of the show, not just outside of
Correct.
like other Star Wars content.
Yep. Yeah, that intimidation, like, yes, we don't know that he dueled 2 Jedi with just a blaster and a lightsaber of his own. Like, yes, they don't know that, but there's plenty of intimidation getting dropped in there from him killing the deputy. The moment that deputy, like, came out, I was like, he's dead. He's so dead. Cad Bane's gonna kill him, and I really hope he does, because that you gotta have Cad Bane do some damage. He can't just be a one-off kind of character.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really cool is we're gonna get, hopefully next episode, a showdown between basically the 2 most famous bounty hunters of all time. With Cad Bane and Boba. Mando's kind of catching up just because of the Mandalorian, but for the longtime Star Wars fans and the fans of the animation as well, Cad Bane is awesome. I really, really hope that Cad Bane doesn't die, because that would suck to only get him for like one scene in this episode and then, have him in the next and then he dies. I hope they let Cad Bane continue on. I think he fits really well as a character that is not really a villain, but an obstacle. And I don't think you need to kill him off. Like, you can just keep using him in different situations. He's not truly antagonistic, right? He's a bounty hunter. He's just there for the job. So, I don't know. I'm hoping he sticks around for more than just one more episode in Book of Boba. But what did you think of Cad Bane?
Just phenomenal. I was worried with how they would go from Star Wars, very stylized animation style.
Yep.
To bringing him to live screen. Like,
Yeah.
they did well with Ahsoka.
Yep.
But Cad Bane is a very different species in Star Wars, so I was worried. And then he comes out, and I'm like, that's Cad Bane.
Yeah.
You don't get his fingers. His fingers
True.
aren't quite the same, but that's whatever. You made his face look right. You got his teeth. You got his eyes.
Yep.
And he has the hat. That's
hat.
Everything's
teeth,
good.
Eyes, and his blaster looks right too. That was another big thing for me. What do you think? There's controversy online about he's not as dark blue.
Oh,
right.
Well.
And his face is a little bit more maybe squished and not as elongated. What do you care?
I don't think those are his defining features, so no.
Mm-hmm.
They got the eyes right. The eyes and the hat, like, you have his vibe with that. And as you said, the blaster. Those are all very iconic. You have his the tubes.
Yeah.
I don't. There's only so much you could do without going full CGI, which they're obviously trying not to.
Which I appreciate a lot.
Yeah, and you have to. The more you put on the face, the less facial expressions you can do, right?
That's true.
I know Cad Bane doesn't have a ton, but he has a very distinct, in Clone Wars at least. Whenever he talks, he's got the angled, his mouth kind of is angled a bit, right?
Yeah.
He's like kind of got a drawl to it.
Yep.
And if they added too much more, I feel like that would have been lost, and I like how they got that in the show. So if he's not a 1-to-1 copy, you're going from animated to live action. I don't.
Yeah, and neither is Ahsoka, right? Like,
exactly.
I think Ahsoka. So for me, I don't. So I have a little mixed feeling. On one end, I totally understand the people that are complaining, okay, you could have just changed his color. Like, I get the, like you said, the elongated face, like, this is still got to be a human under there, and we're not going to go
Yeah.
full CGI. And I really appreciate that they don't go full CGI. It's less expensive, and I think kind of the history of Star Wars is a lot of practical effects, and I appreciate that.
I
Um,
mean, look at Grogu.
exactly, exactly. It wouldn't look right if Grogu was CGI. We would, it just
Yes.
doesn't fit. Um, there's a certain style that you get from going with practical effects and puppetry and things like that, that is just inherent to Star Wars. So I appreciate that they kept that. I do understand the, like, okay, could we just change the color? Like, changing the color isn't gonna. Oh, you just put the different paint on,
Yeah.
guys. Come on.
It's a very
Um,
easy fix.
so I could understand that critique, but my counter is, like we mentioned last week, Cad Bane's pretty old. I would make
It's
the
getting up
argument
there.
that I think this is just a way that maybe his species ages, and over as he gets older, the blue fades a little bit. He looks
Mm.
kind of like the gray hair, right? That's kind of the vibe I was getting. Is this is an old Cad Bane. He's not young and in his prime. He's a little gray, you know.
He's in his silver age.
He's in his silver years, exactly. And so I don't have a problem with the color. At first, I kind of was like, that's not the right color. But then I went, well, maybe he's not supposed to have the same color because we haven't seen him in a long time. Like, we've had quite a few
True.
years here. You would expect his appearance to change in some way. So I'm perfectly satisfied accepting that as the appearance change that happened.
Yeah, and even to me, if there was a, if they're not going for that, uh, I don't. It's not a defining feature for me of Cad Bane's
Hmm.
character.
Yeah.
Like, Ahsoka's color palette is a little like not all of her blues are as blue in live action now, right?
True. True.
Um, and I think it's also you're going from animated to live action, so you're going to get a lot of different lighting. See, like
That's a
in
great point.
animation, you don't have to worry about the lighting
No.
at all, right? That's all just
Yeah.
done afterwards.
Yep.
Now it's going to be hard to capture the exact same tones. I'm sure they could have, but I don't know how much more work it would have been, or
That's a good point.
is that going to change based off of set?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Um,
That's a good point. This might be a safer choice to fit in with different set pieces and different, lighting. Because in animation, you could just make it that color. Like, that is going to be this color, and it's going to be. And you don't have
yeah,
to, um, worry about it fading in the sunlight or, changing depending on which room you're in, right? You
exactly.
can just quickly change the colors of the room and change the lighting of the room however you want in animation. Whereas, a little harder to do in a live action where you actually are building sets, right? So that is a good point. Now, let's maybe transition to some of the things that were a little less than perfect. You
Okay.
mentioned that you had some thoughts on some things. What were they?
Again, like how we said about last episode, this didn't feel like a Book of Boba Fett episode. This felt like a Mandalorian season 3 episode.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like we get a little bit right. At
Yeah.
towards the end, he comes back. Hey, I know someone. Goes talks to him. Right. We we have a bit, but it's still. Oh, we're bringing back a Mandalorian character.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to go talk to. I want to go to see Grogu first, and so
Yeah.
we get half the episode was just Grogu and Luke,
Mm-hmm.
which was great.
Which is
Loved
awesome.
that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will say while we're here, I'm still not a big fan of CGIing dead actors.
Well, I
Uh,
mean, Hamill's still alive, but like de-aging.
okay, right, de-aging. I'm just I understand we have the technology for it now, and if Hamill gave, I'm sure Hamill has permission for getting all of that. Like they got permission from Hamill. I mean,
Yeah.
I still just don't. I was fine in Mandalorian. We're like, hey, we're gonna show Luke coming and getting him because he was in a
Mm-hmm.
very brief scene.
Yeah.
Now I'm not too sure how I feel about how it looks. like there's a lack there, right? There's something that just feels off every time, at least for
Mm-hmm.
me. So I'm not sure how I felt about that. I understand this is a great. We're getting a lot of building for Grogu of what's happening outside of in other parts of the Star Wars universe, which I appreciate. Um, I'm just still on the fence about using it to that much of an extent.
Mm.
What are your thoughts there?
So I guess we can start. I somewhat agree with you.
Okay.
Um, Regarding the de-aging. I think it's getting better, and with it getting better, I have less of a problem with it. To me, um, I think they did a good job. It is a little off-putting. It just is.
Yes.
And I haven't seen one yet. Some of the really hardcore deep fakes are pretty good. Um, just because we have so much video footage, right, of a young
Mm.
Luke. So that's pretty good. I have mixed feelings. One, I like we're telling a story of a character um that we need Luke, like Luke is in it, so somehow we have to get him on the screen.
Yes.
Um
There's a need
Now,
for that.
do we, and so that brings up the question, do we de-age or do we recast? I think as long as we don't need Luke on the screen very much, de-aging is the way to go. Because
Okay.
if you recast Luke Skywalker
Well,
in
it
an
is
era that we've seen him before. Now, I have
That's the
seen
problem. Yes.
in an era that we've seen him before. If you recasted a Luke Skywalker for, I don't know, his really young year, like his teenage years, okay. Or
Yeah.
for old Luke, if we retconned the movies that never happened.
Yeah. Or
Um,
even like Luke 20 years from now.
yeah, yeah. And you do an old Luke and have somebody else play. I mean, you could maybe do something like that. Similar, I think the recasting of Han Solo was fine, right? We're going much younger Han Solo. Okay, we can recast him. Now, we saw what happened when we did that last time we recast an actor. For some stupid reason, a bunch of people got really mad because they looked at the actor and they went, "That doesn't look like Han Solo." Like, well, hold on. You haven't seen him in full costume and makeup. That changes a lot. Um, it would just be such a major thing to recast Luke Skywalker. Like, I feel like some fans would just freak out. I personally would be like, okay, fine. Like, we want to have him do more stuff than like walk around. Now, what they did in this episode that I thought was really good is they kept the camera away from like staying on his
Yes.
face too long, right? Um and and had more shots from the back or more shots where he's obscured a little bit. That way the off-putting nature of I can tell that CGI. Um and when you can tell something CGI, that's
It,
where it gets a little rough, especially with the human face, right?
yes.
Um, when
Very
all
much
the
throws
other
people off.
faces are not CGI. It gets a little, it breaks immersion a little bit, at least to me. So I don't know. I'm mixed on that. Um, I think at the end of the day, I'm more happy with going this way as long as we don't need Luke for a lot more. Like, if this is kind of the last time we see Luke, maybe we see him have another cameo quickly in a couple of other episodes as we go through kind of these series, I'm okay with that. If you're gonna like have Luke be a repeat character that's gonna show up a lot, I would say, all right, we're gonna have to recast, because there's only so many times that we can just do the whole Luke scene without showing his face very much.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at on the CGI.
Okay. Yeah, it's about the same.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Now,
but
to your other complaint, I wholeheartedly agree. This doesn't feel like Book of Boba Fett. And to me, that's disappointing.
yes.
Now, I have been thinking, right? I watched it yesterday, and last night I was thinking about what am I going to say about this on the podcast, because it does bother me that we are not getting Book of Boba. We're getting just more Mandalorian. Now, is
Yeah.
Mandalorian great? Like we both said, this is a great piece of Star Wars content. I loved this episode. It's a great piece of Star Wars content. It just wasn't Book of Boba. It would have fit so much better in a Mandalorian season 3. And that seems to be the conversation that keeps coming up is I thought this was supposed to be about Boba Fett. The first 4 episodes were, and now we've had 2
Uh-huh.
episodes that are not about Boba Fett at all. That's a
Which
potential issue to me. Now, I think part of it might be the classic, you should have marketed this different, right? The marketing should have been done a little differently, maybe, to make this not quite as big a problem. For example, Clone Wars. And this is what these last couple episodes have kind of reminded me of. Clone Wars would do like 2 to 3 episode arcs in the middle of a season that had nothing to do with like the main arc of that season.
Yeah.
Right? You'd have these little side quests almost, right? And that's what these last couple episodes have felt like. The only issue I have is
Book of Boba Fett is not even half as long as a Star Wars The Clone Wars season.
that's a good point, but also Star Wars The Clone Wars is called The Clone Wars. It's just about the wars. So you come in with a general expectation, like this is going to be about different stories in the Clone Wars. And therefore it fits, right? If they said
Yes.
Star Wars Anakin, and then we had a long character arc where Anakin doesn't show up for half the season, we'd all be complaining, like what this was supposed to be about Anakin. Or, something like that, right?
Yes.
Should you have maybe called this, like, I don't know, you could have said Mandalorian. I almost feel like I saw one person say, it feels like the first 4 episodes of Book of Boba were a side quest inside of the Mandalorian show. And I feel like they were like, I think they used the analogy of Clone Wars and said, I think Mandalorian is the Clone Wars and the Book of Boba first 4 episodes are one of those side quests, is what it kind of feels like. And I think that's a problem.
Yes.
Obviously, we loved these last 2 episodes. They're fantastic episodes. I've enjoyed the whole season. I just would like maybe the expectations to be set better from the marketing perspective, from the naming perspective of, okay, this wasn't going to be just about Boba Fett. Some of the motifs that we were picking up early about kind of mob story in Star Wars kind of just disappeared for 2 episodes. Yep. And they're probably going to bring them all back, right? But go ahead.
No, I totally agree. This is you could have taken the 4 Book of Boba Fett episodes, right? I'm just gonna call them 4 for now. You could have done. Well, you could have just made a little short movie. We could have skipped these last 2 episodes, tacked on whatever's gonna happen in the final one. Show we recruited the Mandalorian, and then you would have had a little movie for us instead.
Yeah.
Which would have been fine. I don't think it would have turned out as well, but that would have worked, and then we could have had these episodes be for Mandalorian.
Or you could have called it a mini-series.
Yeah.
And been like, hey, we're going to release 4 1-hour episodes. Because some of those Book of Boba episodes are like 30 minutes long. So just come in and say, we're going to do 4 1-hour episodes, and it's going to be this quick little character arc of Boba, dealing with
what's happening in his territory.
What's happening in his territory. I think that would have been great. And then you could have easily just done what we just did for the last 2 episodes in The Mandalorian Season 3.
Yes. And this really brings up, I think, my biggest problem with Book of Boba Fett so far.
Mm-hmm.
Boba hasn't changed much. We don't have a beginning to end of his character, right?
We don't.
There is no character arc. And when you're thinking, this is about Boba, we have his past arc. We see what he's been through.
Yeah.
And how that got to him to this point.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have any idea of, like, I don't have any connection to the choices he makes in the present, right? Other than, I want you, like, we don't like the Pikes. Let's take out the Pikes.
Let's get rid of the Pikes.
Or, you're trying to be a good guy, so let's make this, like, you're trying to make, it's not Mos Eisley. What is his?
Mos Espa.
His Espa, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You're wanting to make Mos Espa a better place.
Yeah.
Great. But we don't have any conflict with your choices, which is a lot of, when we brought up the mob mentality of this movie, the mob themes, right?
Mm-hmm.
The gangster, that's a lot of what's interesting about gangster films or gangster stories is the, how far are you going to go to accomplish your goal? We already know you're a morally great character, but how far? What's the brutality you're going to use to accomplish this?
And what happens when it comes back
from a bounty hunter.
Mm-hmm.
You really expect that.
Yeah.
And so, since we don't have any of that, that's probably why, I wouldn't say not any of that, since we don't have a huge look of Boba Fett's character.
Yeah.
That's why these last 2 episodes have been great, is because we've had Mandalorian Season 1 and Season 2 build Din Djarin as this interesting character. Build these stories that are coming together.
Correct.
And then we kind of go back, and now we're going back to Book of Boba Fett. Yeah. And there's no real driving thing happening in the show.
Yeah. Boba Fett's story is just stagnant. It's not doing anything.
And I'm fine bringing in side characters, and I like all the references they're doing.
Oh, 100%.
But when their stories are outshining the main story you're telling in this show, it feels like, why did we even do this and not... why do we even have a Book of Boba Fett? We could have just had Mandalorian Season 3, do whatever they're doing, have these moments we've seen with the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And then had an episode where, Fennec came to talk. I'm gonna go help out Boba, and then we have this big conflict with Cad Bane.
Yeah.
With the Pikes and all that. I don't think he's going to die. I think there's going to be another. He will tie into future series somehow.
100%.
And so, the one episode of Mandalorian coming back, they have the conflict. He gets away somehow, obviously.
Yeah.
He'll come back, and then we've set up that plot line.
Yeah.
It feels like all of Book of Boba Fett is building to this one plot line, when every other plot line it's gotten to could have been done anywhere else.
Yeah. Could have been done differently. It could have been done in a different show. And that's, I think you brought up a good point of, why not, if it's okay if you want to tell a shorter Boba Fett story. Like, it's already shorter than Mandalorian seasons are by an episode. Just tell us that it's only going to be 5 episodes. And just do those 5 episodes, and you'd be fine. Now, a thought I did have. Again, it's hard for me to complain about my 2 favorite episodes being in a show, right? You know what I mean? Like, but looking at face value, you got Book of Boba Fett. It's supposed to be about Boba. I was looking forward to learning more about what he's going to do and how he's going to propel forward. Now, a couple things I thought of as we were discussing here. One, I get the feeling that Boba's going to continue being a major part of Mandalorian episodes. And so, maybe there'll be kind of some trade-off there where we get to just kind of have both of them. And it'll be just like Star Wars bounty hunters rather than Star Wars Mandalorian, Star Wars Book of Boba. Which wouldn't have been a terrible idea had you just changed the name for this season and called it Star Wars Bounty Hunters, and say Boba Fett will return in that, and then you get like backstories on different bounty hunters. Like that would have been sick.
That
Anyways,
would have been
I'm
dope.
getting a little
Or
off
like
the
a
rails. But
Book of Boba.
one thought that did cross my mind for a moment.
Uh-huh.
If you are, let's say you're the creative team that's in charge of Mandalorian, working on Boba, kind of making sure all these things go together. Kind of Dave Filoni and his team, right? They're all working on these things. You know, it's the Ahsoka show, Obi-Wan show, etc. And you're making all these things fit together. What would drive you to have to put these two episodes into Book of Boba? To me, it makes me think, how freaking wild is Mandalorian Season 3 going to be if they're like, you know what? We've got too much to do in Mandalorian Season 3. We're going to have to steal a couple episodes of Boba.
That's yeah. What are they building to? Like what's these are great moments we're having. So that would have been a great to see in a Mandalorian episode of itself. So if they're like, hey, we don't have time to fit this in here.
Yeah.
Let's we need to take over a bit of Book of Boba, and they're like, okay. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we're just telling a cohesive, total story, right? If they're looking at it from the overarching thing and trying to figure out when they got time to put this on the screen, if they're sitting here in these last two episodes, they were just like, we gotta squeeze them into Boba. Because there's no way we're going to get to them in Season 3 because we got too much going on in Season 3. Then holy smokes, is Season 3 going to be wild. That's my prediction. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that the reason we have been denied 2 episodes of Book of Boba to watch Mandalorian more is because Mandalorian is just that jam-packed.
Which is kind of... I don't understand why, because you're not you're not a TV show, right? You're streaming, and part of the big part of a purely streaming show is that you aren't stuck into a certain number of episodes. Sure, whoever, if it's Disney, right? They have whatever budget they want to throw at this.
Yeah. It's making them
you
so
go
much
over
money.
like 4 million extra. Oh, who cares? We're
we
raking
need an
that
extra
in no matter
episode.
What.
Sure, we'll do it. You know,
No,
just
I
add
know
an
there
extra
are like
episode.
I know there's like contract issues, but with actors and stuff. But this is all. Hey, this is boardroom. Like we're writing the story. Like I don't understand the choice to be like, why not just tack on 2 more episodes of Mandalorian? Yeah, I feel like that would have been totally fine.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a concern for me of why are we making this choice? We're gonna make this show. We're gonna make Book of Boba Fett. We're gonna market it as this is Boba taking over Jabba's part of this.
Yeah.
And the most interesting part of the show has been the Mandalorian and how Boba got to where he started in Mandalorian.
Correct. The first few episodes
not what's
of Boba
happening
Fett.
in Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah. The past, the flashbacks and Mandalorian have been the actual driving forces of the show.
You could have done Book of Boba Fett where it's just a season, like expanded his flashbacks. You could have expanded those moments.
Yeah.
Because he had a lot of character growth in those.
Yeah, he does.
A lot more than we're seeing in the show.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying your protagonist has to have a character arc, but it definitely feels like it's set up around that because it's everything's focusing around Boba, not how he's affecting other people, right?
Correct.
So, yeah, that's disappointing, but I'm still enjoying it because it's making me hyped for everything else that's happening in Star Wars.
I mean, I still loved the episode. I mean, it was a great episode of Star Wars content. I think that was good framing at the beginning where you're like, it's just great Star Wars content. I'm excited about Star Wars. I'm still excited about Star Wars. You know, these complaints, I'm glad that we get to complain about, well, I wanted more Boba Fett.
Yeah, our complaints are that there is too much good other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's our complaint. Our complaint is your 2 best episodes weren't about Boba Fett. Even though we liked every single episode, right? Yeah. That's a good place for the Star Wars fan base to be in, right? Like, we've had years where we have been complaining about a lot bigger problems than, well, should this episode really been a part of Mandalorian season 3 or should it have been a part of Book of Boba Fett? At the end of the day, the content that we actually got is great content and makes us excited for more, and I'm pumped for the season finale this week.
So, I want to ask your thoughts on a prediction for
Okay.
the finale.
Yeah, since I'm 1 for 1 so far on this
You're,
season's
you're
predictions.
popping off. Do you think we will see more of Grogu in the next episode? Because they kind of left us on a
Ooh.
cliffhanger. Or do you think they're just going to leave that
Oh.
until a future season
Make
of
us
something?
wait?
I can
Ooh.
totally see them doing that because Mando left the planet.
Yeah.
We saw Grogu's training arc. We got to see what's happening. We know Grogu's okay.
Yeah,
That's what we
he's
care
fine.
about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even though if he got shot by a laser, he kicked its ass later.
Yeah, exactly. He crushed it later.
I feel like they're not going to show us Grogu's choice until I'm saying not even Mandalorian season 3.
Oh, really?
I don't think they're gonna pull. Okay, I don't know about that actually.
Ooh, that's a bold one there, Gabe.
I don't know, because I could totally see them being like, let's wait. Let's let them sit and simmer on this and just be concerned of what Grogu's gonna choose.
Ooh.
Because the more we don't know what Grogu chooses, the more we think he chose Jedi. Because we're not hearing anything about him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Or do you think we're gonna find out in some part of season 3? Because I don't think it's gonna be this next episode of Book of Boba Fett. I don't think we're getting that there. But I think
I
either
hadn't
season
thought
3
about that
or
too
nothing.
Much. So I think if I was writing it, I think I would open Mandalorian season 3 with that decision.
Okay.
And that would kind of be my launch point for jumping into what's going to happen in season 3.
Okay.
I think I agree with you. I don't think we're going to see that in this season finale. I think we're going to leave that one for Mandalorian season 3. I would open with it, I think.
Okay.
Because you're right, there's nothing really that's attaching us to Luke and Grogu at this point. Because Mando's back. You know, we've got introductions of Cad Bane. We don't really care. Like, the story's moved on from that planet and that situation. So, yeah, I might leave that to Mandalorian season 3. We'll see. Star Wars, in my opinion, has a tendency to be, I guess, to deliver on its promises pretty immediately.
Yeah. Quick return.
Yeah, it tends to have a pretty quick return on, if we're going to end an episode on a cliffhanger, we're going to start addressing that cliffhanger pretty much immediately. But if they kind of follow that Clone Wars style of like, and we're just going to leave the main story for a minute and we're going to focus on a side story kind of situation here, we might not see it for a while. I think we'll see it at the beginning of Mandalorian season 3. I think I would agree with you that we won't see it in the season finale.
Okay. See, I have a feeling that I feel like the driving part of season 3 of Mandalorian will not be Grogu until towards the end. I would agree. That's my prediction. I feel like we're not going to get Grogu's decision at the beginning. It's going to be towards the end of season 3. And that will bring in, this is what's happening with Grogu. Now we have a new conflict for whatever's happening in the next season of Star Wars, or if they're gonna bring merge seasons as they have been.
Yeah, because I think the main conflict we have with Mando that I'm expecting in Mando season 3 is all Darksaber stuff, and all about the prophecy of the Darksaber and ruling Mandalore, and we've got, we
don't have Mandalore. And he's not a Mandalorian anymore.
Yeah, and he's been stripped of that, although he was stripped by a cult, so, like, they don't really have that much say. It'll be interesting. I think that's going to be the main conflict of Season 3, so I would agree. I don't think Grogu's going to be the driving force of Season 3 of Mando. honestly, after seeing the season finale of season 2, I wasn't sure we'd ever see Grogu again.
I wasn't either. Was not expecting
Um,
this at all. At
on
least
one
not
hand,
until he was
because I
older.
think by having Luke come pick him up, um, we're like sending down
See
the
ya.
path of jumping into the sequel trilogy.
No.
Which I think there's still some discussion going on inside of Lucasfilms and inside of this kind of creative team of how are we going to try and retcon those as like a force vision or a legend or something like that, or are we gonna try and squeeze these shows into that one? Because to be completely honest, we don't have a whole lot of time.
No.
There's not that many years in between where we are right now with Mandalorian and where the
Well,
beginning of The Force
speaking of
Awakens
that,
starts.
isn't the school we saw built, the little hut, isn't
Yep.
that what we see in
Yep.
sequel trilogy?
Yep.
So
I think
they're
so.
definitely like, hey, we can play it this direction, but since they're not explicitly going into anything,
Correct.
which makes sense because timeline stuff, but
Yeah.
they're definitely setting it up so they can go either way if they want to.
That's what I get the feeling. I get the feeling of they have like stayed very non-committal because they totally could commit and like, for example, look at how many Easter eggs we have, right? In these shows, in these episodes. They could easily throw some Easter eggs that are hinting at future events in the sequel trilogy. But
Yeah.
they haven't yet. Except for if you want to say the school, but it would make sense. We knew Luke was going to build a school after Return of the Jedi. Like,
Yeah, like that was even in the books that that Disney retconned. Like he already
correct.
had a school, so
Yeah, so we knew that was probably going to happen. That was a very logical next step. Um, but it does feel like to me they're still kind of tiptoeing around. Are we gonna tie into the sequels, or are we gonna take this our own direction and kind of write the future ourselves?
yeah.
I know what I want. I want them to take it in their own direction and write the future themselves and just kind of
Please.
ignore that the sequels ever happened. But we'll
Even if
have
you
to
even
see
if you
because
have it
there's
be
so
a
many things. Again, there's not a lot of time from where we are now to The Force Awakens starting. And right now we have so many different characters doing so many things and so many conflicts that the fact that we don't hear about any of them in The Force Awakens starts to become a problem.
yes.
Um, where you're like, okay, well then why is, you know, what happened?
Why
Like
is this happening?
we gotta wrap up Ahsoka's entire story, or are we just gonna like? I feel like my feeling is that Disney's higher ups don't want to come out and just retcon the three movies because they've already like it just starts to make the canon a little complicated. Um like when they
Yeah.
did it back with the Legends content now, they just basically said everything's gone except for these 6 movies, Clone Wars and Rebels. That's it. Like and well actually Rebels came out after the retcon. So
Yeah.
it was
They just
literally
were
like the
like it
six
was a very
movies and
easy.
Clone Wars.
Hey,
Boom.
none of the books are canon anymore. None of the like
No video
blanket.
games, no
But
nothing. It was just a blanket wipe everything clean and we're just going to stay with the 6 movies and Clone Wars.
yeah. But
Um
now that it's like, hey, we've brought all this new content, and those 3 movies that we made after getting rid of other content, we're saying those aren't content now either.
yeah,
Would feel a little weird.
it starts to get a little awkward. So my theory and what I'm hoping they're going to do is they're just going to like dodge. They're just going to tell their own stories that are like happening at the same time as the sequel movies are happening, but stay away from directly interacting with them. They'll kind of run in parallel to each other, and I think that would be possible. There's obviously the galaxy is very large, so you could make the argument that, yeah, okay, yeah, they were just messing with the First Order over there. That was in this region of the galaxy. We're in a totally different region of the galaxy doing totally different stuff. That's kind of where I would lean.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I would love if they retcon it just because
Oh,
then we
it'd be
can
great.
take it in a new direction. I just understand from a marketing and all of that.
From a
It
continuity
gets
perspective, it
hassle.
just gets complicated. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just hyped for finale now.
Oh man,
Like
so pumped.
like I said, more hype for other Star Wars content. But
Yeah.
you throw Cad Bane in as a villain
Oh
at the
my
end.
gosh.
You've already sold me on this finale. Like,
I was
if you kill
jumping up
Cad
and
Bane,
down.
I will be mad. I
Oh
will be
yeah.
mad if they kill Cad Bane.
Don't do that to me. Don't get me this pumped up and then give me one episode with him in it.
That would crush my hopes and dreams.
I don't think that'll happen. I trust in Favreau and Filoni.
Oh yeah, I think in the Discord channel we have, someone said that Cad Bane and Darth Vader are two best villains in all of Star Wars.
Ooh.
I don't know if you could call Cad Bane a villain.
See, I wouldn't call Cad Bane a villain, and
He's
I would
an antagonist.
I would have a strong argument for Maul. I think Maul's the best.
True.
I think like the two best character arcs in Star Wars are probably, oh gosh. Okay, I'm going to say 3 because there's 3 character arcs that really jump out to me. Anakin,
we like trios.
obviously.
Oh, yes.
Right? Yeah,
easy.
That is the character arc of Star Wars, right? Like, okay. That's the pinnacle, right? But
it took 6 movies in all of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And it really made it such a good story.
Oh, so good. But the close second and third, and I'd put them very close to each other, and it's fun because they're kind of intertwined, is Maul and Ahsoka.
Yep. Totally agree.
And I think those two storylines, and so that's why I would say Maul as an antagonist, I think, is even better than Bane. Although Cad Bane is awesome. Just flat out cool factor, it's Vader and Cad Bane. I totally get that.
Yes.
Just like
they have
coolest.
the best presence on screen.
Yes.
Like
100%.
whenever you see them, you're like, it's going down.
Oh yeah.
Something is getting wrecked.
Yep.
Let's go.
Gonna be good. Lock it in, boys. Here we go. Yeah. I'm excited for the season finale. I'm excited for more Cad Bane. As my dad said, he's like, yeah, they brought Clint Eastwood into Star Wars. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty accurate. I love it.
I mean, Star Wars is just a big space western.
It kind of is. It kind of is.
Opera.
Space opera, and Mando and Boba have been very heavily into that western style.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap it up with our overall ratings of the episode. 0 to 10, Gabe, what you feeling?
As a episode of Star Wars, this is a solid 9.
Yep.
Solid 9. As an episode of Boba Fett, it's not, so...
Yeah,
it's a 9 of Star Wars.
Yeah, it's a 9. We're gonna stick with 9. Yeah, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. It's a 9. It's not an episode of Boba Fett, so we don't have to rate it that way. But as an episode of Star Wars, definite 9. So incredibly amazing. So much in it. It was just like I'm seeing Easter eggs and cameos all over the place. I couldn't keep up. It was great.
So good at that. Gosh.
All right.
We also watched Nightmare Alley.
We did. I watched it like a month ago.
I was going to ask, did you watch it again since?
So I actually haven't.
Okay.
For those of you listening, to give you a little backstory, I feel like this movie was cursed for Gabe because every time he attempted to go see it, something happened. So snowstorm comes in, theater shuts down. Car breaks down on the way. The theater, and then the final time he tried to go see it in theaters. We were talking. He's like, "Yeah, I could probably go after work or after school or after work, right?" And we looked at showtimes, and the final showtime that they are even showing at this theater They showed it in my hometown for another like 3 weeks, but where he lives, the final showing is now
3 hours
about
ago.
an hour in. It's already started.
Oh, it was great. Well, and
Yeah.
then even watching it, I'm gonna throw some shade here, okay?
Okay.
Um, HBO Max is such a painful streaming service to use.
They're brutal.
Good lord. I have never had this many audio desyncing errors, um, or just buffering times. Even the UI has like a 3-second delay between when you
It's
press a
so
button and when
bad.
you move to the next tile.
Yeah.
It's painful. But
Brutal.
so I finally got to watch it since Nightmare Alley's on HBO Max. Um, and for the first, like, you have the opening scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very okay. Here's shaded in a room, like, oh, interesting, and then you get him at the carnival.
Yeah.
Kind of throw in. I didn't know it was Willem Dafoe talking his character for the first 3 minutes because it would just be like, oh, announcer must be somewhere else because I could never see when his lips were moving attached to his words. The audio was like a good 5 seconds off from what was actually happening
Oh
on screen.
no.
And I had to keep resetting it throughout the 2.5 hour movie. I would have to exit HBO Max, reopen
Oh
the app,
my
which is a good,
gosh. Yeah.
minute loading time.
It's terrible.
Just
Now,
painful. Oh.
remind me, does William Dafoe narrate the beginning or does Bradley Cooper
Sorry,
narrate the beginning?
not the narration. I was
Oh,
referring
okay.
to the
Like the
when you see the
conversation.
Beastman
I
and
gotcha.
he's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
announcing
yeah.
stuff to the crowd.
I
He's
gotcha. I
the
gotcha.
the showsman. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Didn't know that was William Dafoe talking. And then like Ron Perlman's on screen, and I'm like, oh, I know Ron Perlman's voice. That's not him. Wait, what's
His
happening?
lips aren't moving the right way. Oh,
And normally,
brutal.
it's enough of a delay where it's like, oh, it's just off enough where you're like, oh, okay, this is annoying, but I can deal with it.
Yeah, it'll
Whatever.
catch up. It'll figure
Yeah,
itself out.
it didn't until you
No.
reset it.
Oh,
And it was so confusing. I'm
that
pretty sure this
is
is why I
brutal.
missed some of the context we talked about before we started recording.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so highly recommend. Don't watch it on HBO Max, but it feels like it's the only way you can right now.
Yeah, that's. I think you can watch it on Hulu. Um, Hulu and HBO Max, I think. So if you got Hulu,
It's a better streaming service,
maybe use
my
them
opinion.
instead. They're definitely better for sure.
Yeah.
So all of the streaming issues aside, I know. I'm just curious, what were your thoughts on the movie? Maybe we start with a rating or just kind of your general vibe. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What'd you think?
I liked it. It took a bit of getting used to, though.
Okay.
Okay, that's not quite the right word. It kept leaving me. Now in hindsight, like that was well done in this context. But watching the film, especially with the pickled baby, right?
Mm-hmm.
It kept coming back to that. Like you kept having a scene, and
Yeah.
there's some shaking going. There's little brief things, but it never led anywhere, and it left me throughout the film waiting for this moment that just doesn't come. I was just unsettled,
Yeah.
which added to the atmosphere of the film, I think.
Yeah.
Now, in hindsight.
Yeah.
Watching it, I didn't realize that, and I was just like, when's something going to happen? I was just waiting for that moment.
Yeah.
It just had very like in normal thrillers and horrors, right? You have... You can kind of tell when they're building up to a jump scare or something is about to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was waiting for that the whole film. And it never happened.
Yeah.
Which added now to the psychological thriller aspect of the for me.
They're just
So I
uncomfortable.
appreciate that now, yes.
Yeah.
But during the movie, I'm like, when's it coming to happen? When's
when
something
is
going to
it
happen?
Interesting.
So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I don't...
Okay.
You talk. I need to
You
formulate
process
thoughts.
a little.
Yeah.
So I would say, if you were to ask me what is your favorite genre of movie,
It's true,
I would
yeah.
say it's neo-noir. specifically neo-noir thrillers. I absolutely love them. I love noir too. Like, don't get me wrong, but I appreciate color. I appreciate both, honestly. I like both of them in their own way. Um, and so I was very excited for this film, especially with seeing Guillermo del Toro,
Great
tied to
cast
it.
actors.
And the group, yeah, the cast is great with Cooper and Blanchett and Mara and Collette and Anderson and Defoe and Perlman. I mean, it's just everywhere you look, you've got somebody who's really doing a great job.
Funny
We
how our last Don't Look Up and now this one both had Kate Blanchett and Ron Perlman in them.
Very interesting. Yeah, there was a big year for those two, which I don't feel like we see them a lot on screen, so that was kind of fun.
Oh, recently, yeah.
Um, yeah, so I was beyond hyped for this. And I went in um with the expectation of what the genre had been listed as. This is a psycho thriller neo noir. And I went in personally thinking about Guillermo del Toro. Again, I didn't really read anything about the film because I don't like to do that. I like to go in with whatever my own expectations are. That's it, and just be surprised in the film. So I didn't read up too much on it. So coming in with knowing Guillermo del Toro's tendency and just innate ability to create interesting creatures, and his creature design is just cool and unsettling and scary. I mean, he can do a lot of different things with his creature design, and that's what he's known for.
Yeah.
So going in, I was expecting very much on the psychological thriller, and kind of maybe on the kind of creepy side. I knew it had to do with some like kind of clairvoyance idea, and that whole mind reading, etc., etc. I was expecting, I think, just maybe more fantasy as well. Kind of going in like a kind of a psychological neo noir fantasy. That's kind of what I came in with. That's not what it is.
No.
No, I walked out of the theater and I went, huh, that was way more of just a straightforward, very traditional neo noir than it was a psychological thriller to me. Because when I hear psychological thriller, I'm immediately thinking things like Silence of the Lambs. I'm thinking things like Sixth Sense, right?
Yeah. You're thinking these conversations that are really driving what's going on, like the inherent,
Well,
not
also
conflict, but
just
yeah,
the
go
like
ahead.
creepiness, like
Oh, okay.
Sixth Sense, right? You're seeing ghosts, right? And dead people, essentially, right? And there's like some kind of horror elements of like getting chased around, and I was expecting more of that. I was expecting more of that psychological thriller. Silence of the Lambs, the ending of that is one of the creepiest, most disgusting scenes in a movie. With I mean, like, if you look at both of those movies, they're very creepy. We've got one person who's making clothes out of human skin, and we've got, a kid who can see dead people.
Yeah.
I was expecting Nightmare Alley to lean more into that rather than lean into neo noir. Now, what I got was much more a traditional neo noir. And this is a movie, to me, walking out of the theater, I was like, yeah, that was pretty good. Like, that was, as a huge fan of neo noirs, I was like, yeah, that was pretty good. But I wasn't sure if it was such a good neo noir that a fan or somebody who wasn't a fan of the genre would enjoy it.
Okay.
Having sat with it for a little while and thinking about it more as a neo noir than a psychological thriller, I'm liking it more and more. Um, it really is a great film, in my opinion. And
Yes.
keeps getting better the more I like sit and think about it. The more moments I remember, the more moments I take time to really kind of ponder and think about. I'm starting to really, really enjoy this. Um, I wasn't sure about Kate Blanchett's character and Bradley Cooper's character at first. I really like that dynamic, and there's like little things I feel like I'm starting to pick up on.
I
That were
feel like
just,
there was a lot of foreshadowing and
yeah.
hints that it, in the moment didn't get, and it's just the more you sat with it, you're like, oh wait,
Mm-hmm.
that's that was just very good setup there, just very
Yeah,
well
it's
executed.
well executed. The other things that I'm getting is just kind of the overall feel. Neo noirs are very stylized, right? And it comes from noir, which was a very hyper stylized, um, you know, style of filmmaking. And it's a lot. Always you have your kind of conflicted, troubled main character, the femme fatale, um, is a very constant trope, and that was very true in this film too, right? We have both of those very important characters to any noir. Um, what I really really like is that I think sometimes neo noirs, they do a good job of grabbing the kind of characters and the kind of stories and telling these really interesting stories. And I love the kind of compare and contrast, and the you know just everything about the style of film, and how the dialogue's written, and how the story progresses, and what ends up happening. um Kind of the cynical nature of them I really enjoy. But what I think a lot of neo noirs miss from noirs, like when you compare them, they miss the lighting and the like way noirs were shot, because that was such an
Mm.
integral part to what made a noir a noir. And I think Nightmare Alley absolutely nailed it. Like, this film really, in my opinion, even though it's in color, they were able to, with color, bring out the emotions in the scenes and how they were shot that you would get from a noir that's in black and white. Like the very harsh contrasts, the awkward camera angles, those kinds of things that are in a noir that are just enhanced by that black and white, because it's just such a stark contrast of just really white and really black coloring. I think they did a really good job of doing that, but doing it in color in this film. Yeah.
Is there a specific scene that stood out to you with where it really highlighted the emphasis on the noir style of camera work and shading? Not shading, lighting. Shading is
Lighting.
not in.
Yeah. I think for me, I would say there's a couple scenes. Most of the scenes that just in my brain I'm going to are between Bradley and Blanchett in her office.
Okay.
Um, yeah, in those conversations. The ending one, the last conversation they have, obviously is one of the more um intense ones, and that one definitely sticks with you. But really, I feel like all of those scenes were just really well. It felt almost like it had the same emotion as far as out of the scene that a black and white film would have, in my opinion.
I can see that. Yeah, it's just very you- if not trying to, I can't think of the term now, replicate that. It's at least taking emphasis from those and
Yes.
using
Yeah.
that, which I think all of those scenes in her office, very very good for the movie. I
Mm-hmm.
appreciated all like um, the. I don't want to come to just the very end scene in that office,
Yeah.
but that one's just so good.
It's just powerful. Yeah. Really great scene.
Um,
What
what
did
did you
you?
think of the? Oh, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
I'm skipping to the end, so if you're
Go for it.
gonna,
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. We're on the same page here, buddy.
hell yeah. What did you think of the ending?
I
The
really liked it.
comes full circle
Yep,
aspect of
it
it.
comes for full circle, and that is kind of the that's just a thing that you kind of know has got to be coming here in a noir sometimes. Um, I really liked it. I felt that was a perfect ending. Um, I kind of felt that was where it was gonna go from very early on, like when they described it. But then as the movie was going on, I kind of forgot that I was expecting it to go there. um, and then once his whole life falls apart, I went, oh, he's
You're
got
like,
to become
no.
the geek. He has to. You have to do this. Um, which if I had seen the original, I would know that that's going to happen. But I haven't seen the original. I'm sorry.
Neither have I.
Um, so seeing that come about, I'm like, yes, yes, he's got to be. And then he does the same. It happens exactly the same way it was
Same
described to him.
phrasing.
Same phrasing, same
Exact.
words. And even his response, I was born for it. And oh, I
Do
just
you think he
and
knew in that moment that
yep,
oh, I'm back to I've fallen into the same thing I was trying to do with other people.
yeah. And the you can see that he realizes this is exactly what the guy told me how it works. And he was just so down bad. He was so his life had fallen so much apart that he was like, "Yep, that's what I'm going to do. I know where this leads. I know where this goes, but it's better than what it's I'm going to survive, or it's better than what I got going on right now."
The that scene that was just such like the close up on Bradley Cooper's face
Yeah.
for that when he's laughing into tears,
Yeah.
just very well acted, very
Oh,
well framed. With I liked the close up on that. That
yes.
was very
Mhm.
well done.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I the more I sit with it, the more I like the movie as well.
Yeah.
Um, just the more things I can go back and like, oh, that's what was. This is why I had that feeling. Like I can
Uh-huh.
pinpoint what they were using throughout the film to give me this sense of unsettled,
Yeah.
or the foreshadowing used, the themes as well.
Yeah.
Just loved it.
Yeah.
Um, I mentioned before we started the recording, but I had a very. It felt like it was referencing the poem by Edgar Allan Poe.
Uh,
I think it's Telltale Heart. Yeah, that's. I looked it up right before this. Why can't I remember?
I think it
Um,
was Telltale Heart. Yeah. I think
where
that's what you mean.
the whole idea is that he murdered someone, and he stuck the heart underneath the floorboards of his house, and he can consistently hear the beating. And
Mm.
as things go on, you keep getting louder and louder of the heartbeat.
Mhm.
Um, which, when he takes off the wristwatch,
Mm.
you definitely like it's very very loud ticking of the wristwatch, and that had been
Yeah.
he always fiddled with it whenever he was getting ready to do something,
Mm.
like when he was practicing his line for Kate Blanchett's character.
Yeah.
um, I thought like that was a very good tie in there. I don't know if it was meant to be foreshadowing, not foreshadowing, a reference. That's
Yeah.
just how I took it. I felt
Mhm.
it added to the character.
Definitely. Definitely. Now, one question I had that's a little kind of sidetracking here. What did you think of the, I guess, the portrayal of his like clairvoyant abilities, right? Because to me, there were scenes where it almost sort of hinted that maybe he really could do it. He really could read people's minds, or know what was
Mhm.
inside of things. What did you think of that?
Um, I liked it in the context of how the film set it up, because Pete,
Yeah.
that's the name of the one who
Mm-hmm.
is his mentor, right?
Yeah.
He tells him he stopped doing that because you get to a point where you start to believe you actually can do these things.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And so that it's kind of left ambiguous throughout the film if he actually can or if he's convinced himself of it and is
Yes.
just really good at the mental aspect.
Yes.
I liked that a lot.
Yes.
Really
Uh,
appreciated that, especially when it comes back to, oh, you can pick up in Kate Blanchett's voice something's wrong, but you didn't pick up on everything this whole time. So is it just your abilities,
true.
or were your powers just not working right, like properly,
Yeah.
or were you not listening to them properly?
That's actually a really interesting point because he's able to, the first time he sees Blanchett, right, and she tries to trap him, he's able to just rip her apart, right?
Done. Yeah.
And it feels like, okay, he might actually have some ability here, right? But then as they're hatching all of these plans and working together on all of this, this big scam, he never picked up on her real
Nothing.
intentions. That's a
Nothing at all.
really cool point. I don't know if I picked up on that in that way. That is a really great point. Um, and
Now it's
yeah,
it's obvious that he's using his power. If he has powers, he's using it to scam people, right?
yeah,
And so he's playing it up with the different aspects. Like,
yeah.
I'm gonna bring in my wife to play the dead daughter, um,
Uh-huh.
but it's still never described. Oh, is this actually happening? I mean, we
Yeah.
have the lie detector where it goes off when he says yes to those questions,
Uh-huh.
but it goes off in such a way that even the guy was like, "Wait, this seems wrong." Like
Yeah.
there could have been something supernatural happening.
Yeah. Very
So
interesting.
yeah,
Very
there's no clear
interesting for sure.
answer, and I
And I
think
like
it
it that
works
way.
very well for it. Yeah, it
Yeah.
makes the ending even better. Of like,
Yeah.
well, if you had powers, you misused them, and there's a problem, and if you didn't, then you're still not being a good
And you
person.
were just deceiving yourself the whole time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And yeah, that's a great point. And I love that contrast that you brought up of, the first time he sees her versus all the time they're hatching the plans. Like, dude, you tore her apart the first time. It looks like you can read her mind. Doesn't look like you can, right? And she almost kind of lets him have it a little bit. It's a great power play between the two, which I think is awesome and so iconic of the genre. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Now, we kind of we picked this movie for this week as we're doing this kind of series of Oscar contenders in various types of roles, or not just best picture contenders, but also best actor, best actress, supporting roles, etc. um do you get the sense that this one's headed for some awards?
um, well, we already know it's been nominated. I'm cut out again. Uh, I I'm happy it's been nominated. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not. I don't think it's gonna win for me though. At least me
Uh-huh.
personally. Um, I still like Power of the Dog and Tick Tick Boom better.
Okay.
And I think the performances, the lead performances in those are more powerful for me. I think they were.
Okay.
I, it's hard for me to say a better performance because they're very different. But
Yeah.
for me, it was a better performance. Andrew Garfield's especially.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like Tick Tick Boom, even though it's a musical, will hit a lot of the boxes people will want it to, right?
Yeah.
Um, especially with Andrew Garfield's performance.
Mm-hmm.
Power of the Dog will hit the hey, we're the more artsy side of things. This is
Yeah.
like film critic side.
Yeah.
I feel like Nightmare Alley does both of those, but not in the same ways, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not hitting a target audience that will have a big impact on its,
Hmm.
at least in terms of the awards is what I'm thinking specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I,
I
I
think
think
I go
go ahead.
ahead. I was
I
just gonna say I think I agree with you on the like Nightmare Alley deserves a nod for Best Picture, I think, but I don't think
Mhm.
it's gonna win. Right? I think Power of the
Yes.
Dog's better. I think even for a, I think Power of the Dog and I think Tick Tick Boom, but the one that keeps kind of blindsiding me that I think maybe we'll watch this week or next week. We'll definitely get it in before the Oscars, but West Side Story.
Mm.
And I feel like from what I've been hearing, Tick Tick Boom, like you said, it's that musical, it's going to tick a lot of those boxes. It's got a really powerful performance. What I'm hearing is that West Side Story is just like a better Tick Tick Boom. And
Okay.
so I think Tick Tick Boom might get pushed off, you know, kind of that
In
tier
favor
because
of.
they're like, well, we're not going to nominate multiple musicals. We're just going to nominate one of them. So I think that'll be interesting. Where I think there might be some,
Potential.
I guess, some opportunities for
Mhm.
Nightmare Alley, I think it will be in the um the director kind of categories.
Okay,
Um
yeah.
or in production design kind of things, maybe in cinematography, right? Um Now in those categories you're trying to compete with things like Dune. So it's not going to be easy. There's a lot of great movies out and not all of them can win, but I think Nightmare Alley has the potential for, maybe some production, some cinematography, um maybe even some best director kind of things
Mhm.
for um Guillermo del Toro, although I think best director's going to be really hard to steal. Personally, I think it's going to be really hard to steal from Dune, and just how well received that was. So it'll be interesting. I
Yeah.
think I would be along your side. I don't see any of the performances particularly breaking out in front of some of the other films we've watched this year. Um, and even some of the movies that I've heard that are going to maybe be competitive. But I think it does have a shot in maybe cinematography, maybe production, maybe a best director. But I think that typically goes to either the winner or the runner up of the best picture. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of where I'm at on that.
Like it's still a great movie. It's just
Absolutely.
there's a lot of competition this year. It's
Yes.
felt like.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
I would highly recommend to go watch it if maybe
Oh
not
yeah.
if you're not into the thriller side of films, but
Yeah.
if you're at least all right with it, you would enjoy it.
If you can handle it, I definitely say watch it. One thing is the title of Nightmare Alley. It's not that scary. It really isn't.
No,
It's not very
no.
scary. It's not horror. So if you were like, I kind of like noir, but I really don't like scary movies, then you should be fine. Because noir
Like I was
typically isn't that scary. It's more just unsettling or uncomfortable.
yes, it was definitely unsettling.
Yeah.
Um, one of the more unsettling films I've watched, but not to
Mm.
the point where I'm like, yeah, I shouldn't have watched this at night.
Oh yeah, no, it's not scary. It's just kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, you get you just have this unsettled feeling the whole
Mm-hmm.
time, and you
Mm-hmm.
finish you're like, oh,
Okay.
yeah, it makes sense why I was unsettled, and
Yeah.
you don't have to like dwell on that part of the film other than man, it did a good job of making me unsettled.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely. Yeah, highly recommend it. Gabe, out of 10, what are you feeling?
8.5.
8.5?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm gonna give it an 8. It's growing on me. I would have probably walking out of the theater given it a 7. And that's as a fan of neo noir, but I would say it's an 8. It's definitely something I would recommend to someone who maybe isn't a huge fan of noir but wants to kind of get a feel for it. I think this is a pretty solid kind of run of the mill, and I don't say that in a bad way as like it's
Yeah.
super basic, but It's a good, solid. It follows the right. It has the tropes that you're gonna expect in a neo noir, but also does it in enough of a unique way that I think it's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, yeah. It executes what it needs to well.
Yeah,
and I can't ask for more. Yeah.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, with that, we'll wrap up today's episode. As always, if you enjoyed our content, please, leave a like, comment down below if you're seeing this on YouTube, and let us know what you thought. What did you think of that Cad Bane reveal? I'm expecting lots of hand clapping applause in the comments for calling it. Thank you very much. And what do you think about Nightmare Alley? If you got a chance to see it, were you expecting, like I was, more psychological thriller, or were you expecting the neo-noir? Love to hear from you there. Our links for socials are down below. Feel free to grab those, and we'll see you next time.